Welcome to Lassoing Leadership. I'm your host, Jason Rogers, head of school at Rundle in Calgary, Alberta.
Hi, folks. I'm Garth Nichols. I'm the vice principal at Havergal College in Toronto, where I focus a lot of my energy on leadership, global experiences, and education, and innovation as well.
Right on. And for those listeners that are new to the show, this podcast is where we dive into an individual episode of the hit TV series Ted Lasso to learn more about how to lead in a better, kinder, and more compelling way. We've created this podcast out of a love of learning, leadership, and of course, our friend Ted Lasso.
Yeah, and one of our big learnings for us over these past 2 seasons of the show was that Jason and I use this time to reflect on what is important to us about leadership, and we have these great conversations, and then we invite you into them and also guests into this reflection. And to do this, we talk about favorite characters of the episode, leadership nuggets of gold, and we also take a stab at renaming each episode just for fun, and then we leave you with a leadership challenge based on our learnings.
And Garth, over our time, we've had some incredible guests on the show, and there are more to come. But today, just you and I, buddy, we're into episode 11, Mum City.
Yeah, but let's start with some listener feedback.
Sure. Sounds good. What do you got? Have you been hearing from anybody out there, Garth?
Well, actually, yeah, I have. As you know, as some listeners know, I help out with an organization called Cohort 21, and we have some facilitators. And so we took all the facilitators, most of them, out to a Toronto Blue Jays game just last week. And some of them had commented on our outline for season 2 of the podcast. And they were really excited. They're happy that it's continuing, but they're also happy that we have sort of a structure to it that hangs on to some of the things that they love about what we do now, but also look forward to how it's evolving. So that was really nice to hear from my close colleagues and friends at Cohort 21.
Maybe we'll leave it right there, Garth, and maybe we'll call that back at the end of this episode. After all, Mum City has a fair few callbacks from seasons before. Anyways, we hope to keep the feedback coming and look forward to hearing from more people.
Yeah, great. So let's jump in. Why don't you do the episode summary this week for Mum City?
It'd be my honor. Let's jump in. Episode summary time. Ted is left on the edge by the arrival of an unexpected guest, his mum, leading to reflections and decisions that have significant impacts for him and the team. And really, Garth, the dynamic between the two of them is magical. Roy and Keeley worry about Jamie and his impending return to Man City for a very, very significant match. And, I totally love how they each show Jamie so much love and care in their own special way, including following him in stealth mode through the streets of Man City, where they think he's picking up drugs, but in fact, he's heading to his mother's house for an impromptu reunion between Jamie and his mom. Jade and Nate have some real hard talk about Nate working at the restaurant, and Richmond players show up to try to get him back to Richmond. He's contemplating return, but I'm not sure in the beginning all the coaches are on side.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. But like we've gotten into the habit of doing, I would also point some other things out. Like this episode has a lot of callbacks to previous episodes. The poster on Jamie's wall of Roy Kent, for example, that was referenced in past episodes through season 1, 2, and even this season. Keeley is still on screen in the hotels, welcoming people to the hotel.
Yep.
Ted's password for Wi-Fi is barbecue sauce. And there's a great, I think, rekindling of the guidance between Ted Lasso and Jamie during Jamie's injury on the field. And I think this episode can't go without mentioning those two things.
Garth, I'm totally surprised that you didn't call back karaoke, because after all, after the team wins, they're out to karaoke, right?
Yeah, and I think it's Island in the Stream is what Beard is off to sing. He calls I call Dolly, but when are you up for karaoke, Jason?
Changing the subject, not changing the subject, my friend Garth. Who knows? There's year-end parties coming up. You never know where we'll end up. But what about Richmond and the Man City game? It's we got through that whole summary without talking about potentially the pinnacle of this episode.
Yeah, pinnacle of the season too. Really, do you want to discuss it? Do you want to take a second?
I kind of do, actually. Jamie is now, thinking 2 passes ahead, not just 1 pass ahead like he was in season 1. Richmond is performing above all expectations. The action is incredible. The goaltending is amazing. And at the end of the day, they win, putting them in position to take down the league in the final game of the season. But you know what I think's even cooler than the game and the action that happens there?
I don't know. I'm in the middle of a heat wave here in Toronto right now, so I'll take anything that's cooler.
Yeah.
What do you
Well,
got?
it's that the leadership and relationships are highlighted in this episode, and
Yeah.
they far outshine the sports. And that, in short, is what I think we both love so much about
Mhm.
the entire Ted Lasso, season, series, whatever it is. The outcomes of the organization, even when they are impressive, are secondary to the leadership and relationships that build up to that. Those things always come first. And I really think another callback was super interesting. When Man City's coach meets with Ted right after the loss. Ted apologizes, for winning, basically. And the opposing coach says, don't worry about the wins and losses. Just keep these guys or help them become the best version of themselves on and off the pitch. And that's what's most important.
Yeah, huge callback, right? One of the most successful coaches, and that's the actual Man City coach, right? That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
To hear the words from him. So, all right, Jason, you done? Can we move on?
Almost. I just do want to highlight, I mentioned it that Nate wants to come back to the team. The players want to come back to the team, but Beard rejects it right away. But Ted teaches an important lesson about forgiveness, and Beard actually takes it. And in the closing moments, he forgives Nate. And this is Ted's leadership in action. He helps Beard understand the importance of second chances, and Beard totally embraces it. Amazing.
Yeah, and I feel like you're giving everything away here, but are you done now?
I am so satisfied. Unlike Beard, Garth, I forgive you for razzing me, but I love this episode so much, and I love season 3 more than I ever thought I would. I encourage people to go back and rewatch it. There is so much here. But with that, let's keep the episode rolling. Garth, I'm super curious. Who's your favorite character this episode?
Yeah, I mean, after that summary, it's there are so many, but I got to go with Ted on this one. And to be fair, Nate's girlfriend Jade, the waitress at A Taste of Athens, she's an incredible role in this season. She was a close second for me in this one, but I love how Ted, under urgency and pressure in the game, gives time and space, right, to Jamie. He doesn't rush into making a substitution, and he gives Jamie a great question. What are you looking for out there? Because Jamie keeps staring into the stands, and he starts with that great question. He adds in some humor, and then holds some space there for Jamie's emotions, right? And then he drops a huge wisdom bomb on him. You can choose to apologize. When you choose to apologize, you give that to yourself. When talking about Jamie apologizing to his dad, Jamie rejects the idea. I won't give that to him. But Ted says, when you choose to apologize, you give that to yourself. It's like letting go, which I think is great. Again, stoic advice. Then Ted has an amazing look. He and Jamie are staring at each other, and he raises his eyebrows. And in that look, and listeners, if you haven't gone back to see it, just look at this scene, because it kind of tips you to say, like, Ted knows exactly what he's doing. Yeah. Sometimes he looks like a bit of a bumbling coach out there, but this look says, like, I got you, or even like, yes, I am this brilliant of a leader. So I love this scene. Jamie's also pretty incredible in how he responds. Like, he would never have responded like that in the past seasons. He takes that guidance and all that stuff. But then Ted pulls an awesome move, taking Jamie off the pitch in the last minute to allow the supporters to show their appreciation. And it just turns the whole crowd. And I think to myself, Ted is that brilliant. Maybe he is the master puppeteer in all this. So I'm Team Ted this week for sure.
Wow, so good. So good. For me, it again, it's going to be no surprise to our listeners, but it's Roy Kent. Although I have to say Ted's mom and May are close seconds. I mean, May just gives out wisdom left, right, and center as we get through this season. And Ted's mom, she gives it to Ted in the last moments where they have a little head-to-head. But it's Roy for me. In this episode, I really love him because he subtly acknowledges his weaknesses in leadership. It happens twice early in the episode. If you're watching for it, you may recall that when asked if Nate should come back, he shares he's fine with it and his reason is that Nate's good at all the stuff that Roy struggles with. And just seconds later, he goes over to Keely's new office and asks for her help with Jamie. He acknowledges right away that he's not good at dealing with Jamie's emotional outbreaks, and he could really use help. This is a huge breakthrough for both Roy and Jamie and Keely and the team. It's a moment, and so Roy keeps on coming around.
Yeah, Jason, I am so proud of you and just like in awe how you continue to find ways to make Roy your guy. It's amazing. I, I love it. Maybe he's your leadership lesson. I don't know. What do you got for us in terms of a leadership lesson from episode 11, Mom City?
Well, the one thing we haven't talked about a lot, but I'm a huge movie guy. I love movies, and so when I saw the team in the theater watching You've Got Mail, I couldn't help but draw that out as a leadership lesson. For me, the leadership lesson here is that leadership is everywhere you look. You can see it in the movies, you can see it in the customer service, you can see it in traffic behavior of people, you can see it on the sidelines and on the pitch. You just have to look for it. I recently took my boys to Inside Out 2, and I can't stop thinking about the countless leadership and social emotional lessons that can be learned from this movie. I'm just amazed by how those writers take extraordinarily complex concepts, specifically around our emotions. This year, they added anxiety and embarrassment to the cast, and make them approachable for people of all ages. And I think that ability to speak to multiple levels is really remarkable. But back to the leadership mindset, I think you just need to orient yourself in that way and pay attention, and you will see leadership lessons everywhere, even in this Ted Lasso series.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. You need to pay attention. I'm going to jump in because speaking of movies, that scene with Ted watching the tape of Nate going through when he ripped up the signs, what he went through. And there's that great quotation, and I think this one is rife with these, Ted quotations. I hope that either all of us or none of us are judged by our worst moments, but rather by the strength we show when and if we are ever given a second chance. And it's just so powerful, and that's what you were talking about with Beard, right? Earlier on in your summary. I love that. Most everyone just viewed what Nate did in isolation. They viewed the act itself.
Yeah.
But then Ted went that extra mile. He got really curious as how did Nate do it? What was his experience? And with that curiosity comes a massive lesson, one that Beard takes up in his conversations with Nate. And it's just one where he pulls back the curtains a little bit more. He pulls back. It's almost like he develops the full photograph, not just the focus point of the photograph.
Yeah.
So I really love that. And I would add too, like recently at our school, like where I work, we're doing a lot of work on storytelling, asking ourselves as individuals, as educators, as teams, and even asking our students, what's the story we are telling? What's the story we want to tell? And Beard's storytelling at the end of this episode is incredible. Like it's very similar to Les Mis, Nate says. And the lesson, it's just so good, right? And so when you pull back the curtain a little bit, when you get curious about not just why someone did something in that moment, but what led up to that moment, when you try and seek out the full story of the before, during, and after, some powerful things that come out of that. And I think it just leads to greater understanding and ultimately greater connection with that person or with that event or whatever it is. And Beard's last thing to Nate was, I offer you a job. The life part is up to you.
Yeah.
And Nate says, I think you should just headbutt, make us both feel better. And it's a really touching moment. I don't advocate for violence. We don't advocate for violence on this show. But that gesture in this scene is just so beautiful. It's compassion, it's connection. I just love that whole thing. So in terms of leadership lesson, I love the idea of just trying to pull back the curtain. Don't get stuck on one single thing. Ask some questions about what's happening before that moment in other people's lives, in the life of your organization, life of your business, and life of the school, what led up to that moment. So yeah, that's what I got.
Oh man, Garth, you're killing it in here today. And that quote, I hope that either all of us or none of us are judged by our worst moments, but rather by the strength we show when and if we are ever given a second chance. I think is just one of the best quotes of all time. And this is it's so true. It's so true in this day and age. Yeah. Okay, Garth, I'm not going to stop you. Let's get into the episode rename. I'm dying to know what you've come up with. You're on such a roll.
I don't know if I remember it was from the episode or not, but I like this idea of you got to work on yourself.
Yeah.
And I think we see a lot of people who have come a long way who are working on themselves in this episode. It's a fraction of a moment, but Jamie's sitting in the locker room by himself. I immediately flashed to the beginning scene, I think in season 2, where it's just the locker room, and you're looking at the changes. Ted's journey to his own self is incomplete in all of this. He's come so far, but he's still got a long way to go, and you got to keep working on yourself, whether that's with your group of friends. You have a group of friends. What are you calling yourselves again?
My group of friends. Did I have a name for us?
I don't know.
I don't know. I've forgotten it now.
I remember that. That was a long time ago now. But sharing that you have these friends that you go to like a collegial network. Maybe it's a daily journal. Maybe you see somebody like a therapist. Maybe it's a meditative practice that you have. And these are all things we have talked about on this show, right? On this podcast. Yeah. So I want to challenge our our listeners to think about what their leadership practice is that helps them continually work on themselves. Maybe it is one of the things that I've mentioned. Maybe it's something different. Hey, if you've got something different, love to hear from you. Or if you've got a practice that's working for you, love to hear from you. So amazing. I offer work on yourself. Jason, what do you offer?
And for second place out of 2, let me offer family stew. Okay.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So first of all, there's plenty of food in this episode. The restaurant scene, the eating in Jamie's house, Ted's mom, the home-cooked meals, the loaf that she leaves him. It goes on and on. When you're looking for the food, it shows up everywhere in this episode. With all these images of food, I start to think about what makes a great dish, and it's a variety of the components. Okay, that's the stew part. That's the, let's get on to family. It is also obvious that there's importance of family connections in this episode. We meet Ted and Jamie's moms, and they are totally different, but equally magical and important in their lives. When we counterbalance the impact of Jamie and Ted's fathers on their lives, we start to see the stew that our families create. And it's ultimately our jobs as individuals and humans to season that stew and to make it into a beautiful and delicious masterpiece. And Garth, the only way we can do that is by working on ourselves.
Oh, I don't know. Your family stew, that really resonates with me. As I said, we're talking about storytelling. And this past week, we were, as a senior leadership team, we had this couple of great moments. And one of the questions was, who is someone in your life that always sees the best in you?
Mm-hmm.
And in my group, every single one of us was family.
No doubt.
It was a grandmother. Maybe it was a grandmother. Maybe it was a father. For me, it was my mom. For me, it's many people in my family, for sure. But I love that family stew because you got to stew over these things too.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that. Okay, leadership challenge. Jason, you are now on a roll. You hit it.
Okay, I've got a leadership challenge for us, and it brings us all the way back to Roy. I encourage our listeners not to think about what they're good at, but what they struggle with. Once you've identified the gap, think about someone at your work who fills this gap. And then, as an addition, kind of a bonus to the challenge, take a minute and let them know why you appreciate them. Be sure to be specific about the skills and talents they bring to the table. Garth, quick question. Hate to put you on the spot. Can you model this? It's hard to believe you have any weaknesses, particularly after hanging out with you for over 40 episodes on this podcast. But if you do, what is it? And who on your team fills this gap?
Okay. What pops to mind is just because it's fresh in my mind. End of year, planning for next year. I tend to lean into like productivity. I tend to lean into like, let's get stuff done. Let's move. And sometimes that can come across as being impatient or dismissive.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a weakness of mine, and I really have to thank my colleagues, in particular, like my close friend and colleague Adam Kaplan. Very curious, asks a lot of questions, and it slows me down. And sometimes it's the most annoying thing in the world, but sometimes most of the time it results in aha. And it always leads me to reinforce, my own why. Like, this is why I think this is important. This is why I think we have to move now. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that I am working on. Adam really helps me out. Everyone on my teams, they always help me out. And certainly in our senior leadership team, there's some great challenging conversations that we have. So I really appreciate that. I'm really blessed and thankful to have so many great people on my team that fill those gaps. Yeah. And I can only hope I fill some for them. So what about you, Jason?
Oh gosh. A bit of a dreamer, I think, and I need to be brought down to earth a little every now and again. And I think it's like somebody who can push me on the details. And I've had the good fortune. I mentioned him probably 5 or 6 times on this podcast alone. But Gary Silva and I have been working in senior leadership together for 13 years, sometimes just the two of us. And he's just perfect yin to my yang. And he is a details guy, whereas I spend a little bit more time in the vision. So
Nice.
absolutely perfect partner in crime. Okay,
Yeah.
let's get into. I want to know what your leadership challenge is now. Go for it, Garth.
Oh, I would just offer doing what Ted did with Nate's video. Try to expand your viewpoint, your perspective, and the story that you are being told, right? Ask some good questions. Maybe it's a story you're being told about a project, about a culture, or about your own leadership. Try to expand your viewpoint, or at least, as I said earlier, like try to have some people on your team who will expand your viewpoint for you too. So, yeah.
There you go. Leadership challenges
Awesome.
accepted.
Hey, we're coming up to time here, my friend.
Yeah, so let's share just quickly 1 minute. Let's share a little bit of news about season 2 of the podcast.
Yeah. All right. We're planning for a new season of Lassoing Leadership Season 2. In Season 1, we focused on the episodes. In Season 2, we evolved to explore the themes that have emerged from all of our episodes, from our guests, from our own reflections, from your questions and ideas too. As Season 2 of our pod develops, we have a sort of an idea for a cadence for each major theme. So it's a cadence of 3 shows where each theme is explored through 3 specific episodes, and each episode, well, it has something different to them.
Yeah, the first one is just Garth and I talking about the theme and how it impacts our show, impacts or shows up in our experienced lives and what insights we might offer. We'll tell you what we're listening to, reading, or reviewing, so you can join us. And we get to tease our guests a little bit and tell you who we're coming on the next episode.
Yeah, so between episodes, you can start to listen to the same thing we're listening to or read what we've read. The second episode will have a guest, an expert in the field, a research or a practitioner, or just someone who we feel like role models. And this is where we need your questions. We'd love to have questions from you for that expert, for that guest, to help us make this podcast special for you, our listeners. And this is where we also in episode 2, we'll remind you what we're listening to or reading so that you can join us for our 3rd episode of a deep dive. And again, more questions welcome.
Right. And the 3rd episode in our cadence will be that deep dive that you're talking about into resources that we've mentioned, and then give it a bit of a wrap up with a leadership challenge like we're used to. Pretty good. What do you think, Garth?
Well, it doesn't matter what I think. I'd love to hear what the listeners think. So we are really excited for the upcoming season, and we'll be sharing a little bit more as well. But if you have ideas, questions, or if you even like or don't like what we're planning, then let us know. But time to wrap it up, Jason. Thanks for listening, everybody. As a reminder, if you like what you've heard here, rate the podcast, share it with your friends, because we're going to get Sudeikis on. Enough of this if we're ever going. I think we got to put a stake in the ground. We're going to get Sudeikis on, but we need your support. So, Jason, why don't you take us home?
Yeah, for sure, Garth. Until next time, keep leading the Lasso way. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jason.